anumang pagsikil, ipaglalaban ang bayan. Sa data mo'y karunungan at katarungan, magpapatuloy sa pagkilos tungo sa pagbabago. Sama-sama sa paglaya ng isip at diwa, magpapatuloy sa paglilingkod, ukit ng daan tungo sa midyang malaya at mapagmalaya. Malaya, mapagpalaya, himbagan ng tinig ng pakikibaka sa iyo unang ibinulong. Ang tungkuling inaasahan sa mga pag-asa ng bayan. Ang media, malaya, di patitinag sa anumang pasikil, ipaglalaban ang bayan. Sa data mo'y karunungan at katarungan, magpapatuloy sa pagkilos tungo sa pagbabago. Sama-sama sa paglaya ng isip at diwa, magpapatuloy sa paglilingkod, ukit ng daan tungo sa midyang malaya at mapagmalaya. Magsihayon, lumagok sa piling ng masa, at anong mang pagsusuko, magmulat, maglingkod at makibaka, alagad ng media. Magpapatuloy sa pagkilos tungo sa pagbabago. Sama-sama sa paglaya ng isip at diwa, magpapatuloy sa paglilingkod, ukit ng daan tungo sa midyang malaya at mapagmalaya. Malaya, mapagmalaya, malaya.
Good afternoon and welcome to our online action as we commemorate World Press Freedom Day. I am Janice Ann Eliao from IAWRT Philippines and Bulatlat, and I will be moderating this afternoon's online protest. Today, all over the globe, we commemorate this very important day to revisit how our freedoms of the press and of expression are faring. We unite despite all forms of attempts to silence us and to keep us from our most important duty of truth-telling. Today, we bring you this online protest action organized by the International Association of Women in Radio and Television in partnership with the Journalism and Media International Center of Oslomet University and in collaboration with UNESCO Jakarta. Our event is cross-posted on multiple Facebook pages, so please do share it and spread the word. To formally open our protest action, we call on journalist and IAWRT President Violet Gonda.
Thank you very much, Janice. And to all our esteemed speakers, invited guests, IAWRT members across the globe, I say greetings and a pleasant day to you all. On behalf of the Executive Board and members of the International Association of Women in Radio and Television, I welcome you to our World Press Freedom Day online global protest action titled Defending Press Freedom and Freedom of Expression. I am glad to inform you that this event is in partnership with the Journalism and Media International Center of Oslo Met University and in collaboration with UNESCO Jakarta. This online global protest aims to respond to so many human rights violations worldwide that put the lives of journalists at risk. Our network is not exempted to these violations. Here are some inhumane acts that some of our members have recently experienced. On December 10, 2020, journalist and IAWRT member Malalai Maiwand and her driver were killed in Afghanistan. On the same day, Lady Ann Salem, our communications officer, was arrested on possession of firearms and explosives, trumped up charges. After almost 3 months, she was released after the court dismissed the charges as baseless and inconsistent. And journalist Frenchie Mae Cumpio, who's our IAWRT Philippine member, is still in jail since February 7, 2020. And presently, there's no communication with her. The harassment of journalists not only affects media practitioners, but shortchanges citizens who depend on the media to provide a critical service in society, denying people to access to truth, which is a very sad reality. As we celebrate World Press Freedom Day, we have invited guest speakers who will share with us their fate and struggles as journalists. Also, we would like to recognize the work that they have done and been doing as women journalist truth tellers. At this point, let me also thank them in advance for coming to the World Press Freedom Day online global protest. To Chan, a journalist doing incredible brave work reporting on the worsening crisis in her country, Myanmar, former political detainee, Lady Ann Salem, who's a IAWRT Philippines, IAWRT Communications Officer, and IWMF's Courage in Journalism awardee, Najiba Ayubi from Afghanistan, and last but not least, from the Philippines, the 2021 UNESCO Guillermo Cano World Press Freedom recipient, Maria Reza. All our esteemed journalists will discuss the need to defend press freedom and freedom of expression. And in addition, some testimonies from our colleagues in India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, and Myanmar will be heard. Dr. Ming Kirk Lim, Advisor, Communication and Information of UNESCO Indonesia Office, will present the importance of uniting women journalists in the Asia Pacific. And as you all know, this year's World Press Freedom Day marks the 30th anniversary of the Windhoek Declaration, um, which was developed by African journalists pressing for a free, independent, and pluralistic African press. In line with this, IAWRT will also host another commemoration event on May 4 with an impressive lineup of female changemakers from Africa. Finally, with the steep rise in the attacks on journalists and a weakening in regulations protecting freedom of expression, women journalists and media workers are in a very difficult situation. A recent study by UNESCO on online violence against women journalists also shows that the majority of women journalists surveyed had experienced online violence relating to their work. Online violence against women journalists is used to silence independent voices, spread disinformation, and undercut fact based journalism. Worst, it is reported that more than 1,000 journalists have died due to COVID-19, many as a result of a lack of protective equipment and unsafe working practices. So IAWRT joins all journalists and media workers from all over the world to call for urgent measures to counter continuing threats and crises worsened by the COVID-19 pandemic. We pray for the day when journalists are reporting the news and not making the news, for COVID safe newsrooms and also for general safe environments for media practitioners. And before I hand over to Janice, our moderator, I want to say once more on behalf of the IAWRT, welcome. It is a wonderful, it is wonderful to see so many of you here in this online protest action. And I thank you.
Thank you so much, Violet. Definitely, this is going to be a very busy week for IWART and press freedom loving advocates in many parts of the world. And today is just the start of, I think, a month-long commemoration and celebration of our of the press freedom that we continue um, to cherish. So today, for our program, we will put a spotlight on the plight of women journalists and filmmakers who have been bringing the powerful to account and those who dare to amplify voices of the marginalized and those who have least in life. To share their stories and challenges, we have with us a filmmaker, IWART India member, and its former managing trustee, Nupur Basu, filmmaker who has also recently launched her film Happiness Class and IWART Nepal member, and Nia Satkot, broadcaster and member of IWART in Pakistan, Kudsiya Memun. We will also have a poem to read by Zainab, IWART India managing trustee and chapter head.
Sorry, who has been called to speak? Just a little.
Nupur.
Oh, me? Oh, I'm so sorry. I thought you said
Yes.
Dr. Samina. Okay, I'm so sorry. Good afternoon, good evening to all of you. These are the most difficult times I can imagine that we have been through as media. I've been a journalist for 40 years and I have not had this sinking feeling in my stomach to this extent before. And I would like to just place that on record. Right now, what's happening in India, and I'll begin with the present moment, journalists are all over trying to record what's happening on the ground. There is no oxygen, there are no ICU beds, and people are dying without oxygen in India. Once described, like to describe itself as a superpower. It's the most unbelievable apocalyptic moment that we could ever go through. And journalists reporting on it are being told that calm down, don't exaggerate, don't spread panic. That's the general, sort of thing to warn them that they should not do the truth telling of the horrific things that they're documenting on the ground. So I'm just starting with the present moment and the pressures on journalists at the moment. In last 1 year, this has been right through COVID, this has been the scene. In fact, COVID has been an opportunity for our rulers and non-state players and others who don't want a free press to crack down on the media. And we've seen this worldwide, in terms of lies, denials. Every time journalists try to tell the truth, they try to say that this is fake news. I don't have to, all of you have been through this, you're dyed-in-wool journalists, and I don't have to tell you what we have been going through. So I'll not repeat those moments, but just want to reiterate that in India, it has been the scene. Journalists who've tried to do truth-telling, tried to point out about how things are going wrong, have had first information reports, that is the FIRs, police complaints filed against them. They've been harassed, they've been arrested, they have been incarcerated. Some of them are in prison. Recently, one journalist got COVID in jail and he was presented to the hospital in handcuffs. That was in a different case altogether. He was reporting on a gang rape. But, so these are the kind of scenes that we had probably witnessed once when we had an emergency, but even then, not to this extent. There was censorship of the newspapers then, and they had to pass through the authorities before it went out. But not this kind of out and out attack on any journalist who does not agree with the powers that be, the government in power, and everything that is going wrong on the ground. This is the most difficult moment for a journalist who wants to do truth telling, and I put it on record here before all of you today. The COVID has also resulted in huge job losses for journalists in India. COVID has been used as an opportunity by newspaper owners, television channels. They've used the excuse of COVID to retrench journalists and put them out of work. And hundreds of journalists, I mean, those numbers are still being tabulated of how many people are without work. And you know what that can mean. Being in independent journalism, being an independent journalist, chasing checks, if you need to run a family, if you are a professional, is a difficult place to be in. You can't really do, and plus you don't have cover of any kind when you're going into dangerous locations. It's interesting, and I want to place on record that the Editors Guild of India has been asking the government to put journalists as frontline, to call them frontline workers, dub them as frontline workers, so that they are given vaccines on priority as they're going out into the field and in difficult areas where they're likely to get infected, in hospitals, in communities. Till today, the government has not responded on that. And journalists, as a priority, though they are frontline workers, are not being given the vaccination. We have a huge shortage now in front of us. We called ourselves very proudly the pharmacy of the world, but right now India is facing a vaccine shortage. And this is going to be the big problem in the next coming days. Journalists who try to report on this truthfully will also once again be harassed without a doubt. Violet just mentioned 1,000 journalists have died all over the world. I think it was Violet who said it. Out of that, well, we account for over 150. I think the last count day before yesterday was 157 journalists have died of COVID. That is on record. We don't really know in the Mofussil areas how many journalists who are not really in the gaze of the, who are not in the cities and people don't know about them, how many more there are, because they are saying of the documented deaths in India, the actual deaths are probably in multiples of 6 or 10 even. I mean, epidemiologists all over the world are saying this. Government is, of course, denying it. So this is the kind of, I don't want to get into the online attacks on women, what women journalists have been going through. They have not been spared in this attack that the government has unleashed on those who truth tell. A top woman journalist had all sorts of intimidatory tactics thrown at her. People barged into her house, and the police would not even register an FIR in that case. And I'm not just taking names here. There was another journalist, a very prominent woman journalist, who, when she reported about how a scheme was not reaching the poor in the COVID times, she was again pulled up, and her report was denied, and an FIR was filed against her. So women journalists have been facing the ire as well of the government for not sort of doing coverage which complements them. What the government wants is that you do a coverage which is, and I'm very sorry to report this, and you probably know about a large section of Indian media who has actually just been co-opted by the government and who are morning, noon and night giving out the government propaganda. And so therefore what has happened on the ground, I'll keep it short. I know there's so many people who want to speak. I just want to give you the the real burning issues before us, is the lack of solidarity that has, journalist community is a broken community today. We are not together. because we have been ideologically polarized. So you have one set who are saying, no, that this is the best, that, they are going on with the government propaganda. And there's another lot who are saying, let's go to the ground. We are not against anybody. We've always questioned those in power. And that's the job of a journalist to do, to go out there and to go to the field and to bring the real story back to the people. And those who are doing that are being discriminated. And therefore, the solidarity which we need for journalists to be together, to fight every time a journalist is jailed or incarcerated or has a police case against them, that is not happening to the extent. There are thankfully those organizations which are there, like the Editors Guild, the press clubs, the Reporters Guild. But over the years, these have all been diluted and they don't really have any teeth. But of course, I must say that in many of these cases, they have come forward, at least documented their protest. So once again, I'll just end with saying that, we are going through the most difficult phase for the press in India. And you already know about it. There is enough and more being written in the international media about that. I just wanted to bring it to you through my voice. I look forward to hearing all of you.
So it's my turn. Yes, please. Yeah, thank you so much. Uh, so much my pleasure to be in this online protest action. Nupur, I was listening you because we are also, suffering the same from problem as in Nepal also from COVID-19. So in our organization also, 100 and more employees are infected right now. But still we are going to office and doing our work and making the programs and going for the reporting. We have lost our 5 friends already due to COVID. They are working and we are hoping for the best the days to come. So actually, uh, instead of this oxygens everywhere, we are still working um, to make to inform the people and to in the good way. So in my presentation, I had make some slides, so I want to go through it in a quick review. Uh, it's not changing. Okay, so um, before I, starting about the scenario of journalists in Nepal, I would like to uh, say the history of press in Nepal. It is not, we don't have a long history of press in Nepal. It started from 1851-80 when the first printing press was brought from Britain in Nepal, and it was named Gidda. Gidda is the name of the bird. There was an eagle symbol on it, so it was named at the Gidde Press. So we started our the mass media Nepal starts from 1851. Next. Uh, so the national daily paper was in 1901. Radio Nepal was established in 1951. Nepal Television, which is the youngest television channel in South Asia, it was established in 1984. I'm feeling hard to change my okay. In present, 912 newspapers, 750 radios, including FM and local community radio also, and 102 television channels, more than 200 online portal numbers, and 80% of the Nepalese they use internet. Uh, this is, I think, one of the important slides I have to tell. Some of the
some facts on the status of women journalists in Nepal that we feel that in Nepal there is about 13,000 journalists. Among them, 25% are women, and women aged between 20 to 30 years journalism. Among them, 62.1 women work in FM radio. I belong to television, so only 10% women are working in television, and 1.7% are included, and only 2.9% of women are bureau chief, senior correspondent in mainstream. I think women's negligible presence in media is somehow related to this lack of women leadership in this sector. 35.6 women are never been promoted. 41.4% of women journalists are not getting minimum salary. 19.2% strongly feel the gender discrimination in workplace. 24.9% women journalists report abuse and violation at workplace. Only 51.3% wants to continue job. Uh, Women's journalist organizations. Some organizations related to women are working actively for the right
Quality is not good.
related to women journalists are actively working for the women's rights and their professional securities, like Sancharika Shamwa, which is an umbrella organization of women journalists in Nepal, WWJ, which is the Working Women Journalists, and IAWRT Nepal chapter. Besides this, women journalists are also member of Federation of Nepali Journalists, which is an umbrella organization of journalists and other different kinds of journalist-related organizations. IAWRT Nepal chapter is also working with Sancharika Sammo. We did short film festival in the joint venture with Sancharika Sammo also. And some media act and law that we are guided from it. We have Radio Act, Press Council Act, Press and Publication Act. I think every country have this kind of act, and we are also guided with this act, law, and our ethics. Uh, uh, Constitution provision. The Constitution of Nepal guarantees expression in media, also right to freedom of opinion and expression, right to communications, right to information, and right to privacy. Though the Constitution of Nepal guarantees the freedom of expression in media, uh, but press freedom challenges in Nepal are political challenges. Due to the political challenges, civil war, we have been through for 10 years in the civil war, an unstable government, federal government, policies, business, interfere of political parties. This is one of the most challenges for us for the press freedom and freedom for expression. The ownership, censorship. I work in the state-owned media, so I have been through lots of struggling with the censorship through the government in our program, in our content, and in our reports. Challenges of journalists, though we are doing our work for the betterment within the ethics and following the media act and rules, but still we have the challenges of wages insecurities. We don't have job guarantees. During this COVID period, about 3,000 journalists, they are compelled to quit out their job. They lost their job, and among 3,000, 50% were women. And life safety journalists also feels the challenge of exploitation, abuses, especially discrimination in wages, and even the death. Journalists are also facing this all kind of challenges. Nowadays, the online, due to the online and cyber, most of the women are facing cybercrime. protest. She was in the jail for 4 to 5 hours, and then after she was released. This is a simple example. Journalists arrested during the rally demanding press freedom. Here are some more pictures, and all the, and all the their voice for the expression of freedom of expressions, for their rights, and for their job security, for their wages security, and even in this COVID period, they are demanding the job guarantee and wages security as well. And hunger strikes are going on here. The last picture I am going to mention here is a journalist. Her name is Uma, and she was the first female journalist to be killed in Nepal. She was killed in 2009 for she was murdered for her journalism. She used to write, and she also works in radio. Also, she used to write on the women's rights issues, and she was killed for that. So, better or worse, we are on the way. We are trying our best. So, I'm very much happy to take part in. Indeed, we have to do lots in Nepal also, even in the fear, even in threat. We are working, and we are also trying environment for the journalist as well. So thank you so much for listening to me. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Um, First of all, I would like to welcome you all, and I want to start my conversation with the findings of the recently published research by Media Matters for Democracy. It's an Islamabad-based organization, and they are working on and monitoring the freedom of expression in Pakistan for many years now. And their report about freedom of expression is just published last month, and it is about the situation of 2020. They say that Pakistan has been facing restrictions on electronic, print, and social media, and threats are okay. They are saying that Pakistan has been facing restrictions on electronic, print, and social media, and threats are from both state and non-state actors, and journalists are facing all kinds of threats like physical, legal, and digital threats. And this censorship is not only to the journalist, but to the media houses also. Because the situation or the environment in Pakistan is so much intolerant. If you have a difference of opinion, if you have different kind of reporting style, the people are not now able to tolerate each other. So especially the sitting government, they have this kind of mindset that they can't tolerate any kind of criticism, and if you do that, you will face the censorship. Not only your program, but the whole outlet is sometimes banned. And this has been faced by many major media outlets in Pakistan. And if we talk about the digital digits of or the numbers of journalists who lost their life in the line of duty last year were 8. 36 become victim of attack in the line of duty, while 10 journalists were arrested by the authorities. So this is the very gross situation as far as the expression of media, expression of freedom is concerned regarding media. And if you talk about the women journalists, like my other two colleagues from India and Nepal, they said that due to the COVID-19, media outlets have um, actually released many journalists from their duties, and they have lost their jobs. And has happened in Pakistan. And especially journalists like me who are working independently or as freelancers, we currently don't have any work. And obviously the um, situation is not really good in terms of working environment, because in Pakistan we don't journalists even don't have any kind of health insurance or health coverage. Like I've been working with the local and international media for so many years, but I've never ever get any kind of coverage when I go to the field, and I've been to the very sensitive areas for my work. So this is the journal situation, and it is same in the COVID situation, that if you are going out for your duty, no one is there to give you a medical coverage. And if you got COVID, then you have to face, or bear the expenses at your own. So these are the things which are very much same like other neighboring countries. And obviously for the females, the situation is more sensitive in Pakistan, because if I am a journalist and I have my own YouTube channel even, or I want to express myself, I have to look for many kind of, groups, um, for because I have to think about religious groups, I have to think about political groups, and I have to think about many other groups that maybe I will not hurt their sentiments. So it is not a really encouraging situation right now in Pakistan. Thank you so much. I have less time, so maybe some other time I will explain in detail. Thank you so much.
Hello, everybody. I'm Samina Mishra from India. Thank you, first of all, Nupur, Nita, and Kutsia for these accounts. As we can see from them and everything else that's going on around us, the world is broken in many ways. And in these dark times, we turn also to art to give ourselves some strength, to nurture the energy, to continue the fight. Because these fights have been fought in every generation, and people have come before us and left us art and poetry and music that we can draw strength from. So I'm going to share with you a poem by a poet who, after independence, was not Indian, but he's a poet of the subcontinent, and we also claim him as our own. So Qudsiya, I hope that you will be happy that I'm going to recite a poem by Faiz Ahmed Faiz, who we claim also as our poet. This is a poem called Bol. I will recite it first in Urdu, and then I will read the translation by Mustansir Dalvi. Bol by Faiz Ahmed Faiz. बोल के लब आजाद हैं तेरे, बोल जुबां अब तक तेरी है, तेरा सुतवा जिस्म है तेरा, बोल के जां अब तक तेरी है। देख के तेरे आहंगार की दुकान में तुंड हैं शोले सुर्ख एहाहन, खुलने लगे कुफलों के दहाने, फैला हर एक जंजीर का दामन। बोल ये थोड़ा वक्त बहुत है जिस्मो जुबां की मौत से पहले, बोल के सच जिंदा है अब तक, बोल जो कुछ कहना है कह ले। This has been translated by many people. The translation that I am sharing with you is by Mustansir Dalvi. Speak out. Speak out, your words are free. Speak up, your tongue is still your own. Your body remains yours, ramrod erect. Speak out, your life is still your own. Look how in your smithy's forge, flames soar, iron glows red. How the locks have opened yours and every chain, unlinked, now spreads. The short time left to you is enough. Speak up before the body and its tongue give out. Speak out, for truth still survives. Speak out. Say whatever you have to say. Thank you. I hope that gives us all courage and strength to carry on. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much to Nupur Basu, who is also, by the way, the director of IAWRT documentary Velvet Revolution, of Nita, of IAWRT Nepal, of Kudsia, of Pakistan, and of course Samina for that very touching poem that you have shared with us this today. Thank you for all the messages of solidarity and for sharing your plight, struggles, especially now that we are dealing with a pandemic, and how you are bravely and consistently doing your work as journalists and filmmakers. And now we are going to proceed to the main part of our online action. Last year, 2020, sorry, when on International Human Rights Day, we received news of her arrest. And after months of waging that struggle to have her return to the IWAR family, she is now with us this afternoon. She is the communication officer of IAWRT International. She is also recently elected as the national director of the National Union of Journalists of the Philippines, an editor of Progressive News Manila Today, and a former political detainee. A good friend, Lady Ann Salem.
I thank you all for joining us today, and to everyone who's listening in, for everyone who's here, for believing that we have to gather today in the name of press freedom. Myself, I'd always believed and fought for freedom for this nation and for its people, their freedom from poverty and injustice, for press freedom for us journalists to be able to do our work without fear or favor, for the public's right to information. So I never thought I'd have to grapple with my own freedom being taken away from me. And it was just not a physical one. It was also of my being as well, as everything I had known to do or like or work for was taken away from me. So this all started, I guess, when in college, I watched a documentary film about the massacre of farmers in Hacienda Luisita in 2004. The official narrative was that the striking farmers and farm workers opened fire. These farmers went on strike as they were paid 9 pesos a day, or I think in dollars, that's just 20 cents, more or less, in 10 days' work of at most in a month. Not people who then heard the news would ask, they did not even have rice. How could they have had bullets? The documentary that I watched showed clearly the rain of bullets came from inside the hacienda, owned by a century-old landlord and political clan where two Philippine presidents belong. I could not look away, and I had not looked away since. After college, I joined that media group that was red tagged by the government for making that documentary film. My arrest was a familiar script of midnight raids on homes of activists or members of groups deemed critical of the government. Like in the case of Frenchie Mae Cumpio and many others, police barged in uninvited at midnight, and we were forced to follow with guns pointed at us, authorities not identifying themselves and not presenting the warrant before entering our homes. My hands were tied behind my back and I was made to face the wall and kneel at first. Police prevented me from looking behind my shoulders. A full hour had passed before they presented the search warrant to us, and when they said that the search will now commence. In the search, guns and grenades were found in my everyday bag, under the pillow, and inside the wardrobe. The irony could not have been greater than that happening to us on International Human Rights Day. It was also the last day of 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. The police refused all requests for us to speak with our family, to call our lawyers in the first 35 hours. It was only during the inquest, the procedure of filing of charges against us within the 36-hour window, after which I can be declared illegally detained, that they allowed us to speak with our counsel, but for no more than 30 minutes. And then we were again denied communication with lawyers or family for another 5 days. That was then justified with us being placed in isolation due to the COVID-19 protocols. 5 full days passed before I was able to tell anybody outside the jail what had happened to me. And only until then had I felt more certain that I will be detained and not to be disappeared or killed. It was only in January, or almost a month after my arrest, that I was able to speak with my family and for them to see my face again through the online visits when I was already detained in the city jail. And only nearing my release had I found out that the narrative the police conjured for the courts was that we were part of a gun running syndicate. Nowhere in these charges had they said that I am a journalist, and I have been so for the last 15 years. The false narrative was again also ironic because it was them who wielded guns against us for us to submit to their will inside our own home, and they acted like they know full well that for ordinary or unarmed citizens like us, we would lie down on our bellies or kneel when we are told, especially when a gun is pointed at us. Meanwhile, the NTF-ALCAC, or the coordinating body against local armed conflict, or the communist insurgency, blattered on with personal insults, rumors, and more red tagging, claiming victory for the arrest of their Human Rights Day 7 for something that they could not file in court. They had to justify these human rights violations and the irregularities in the procedures of law enforcement. Red tagging was just another justification or public conditioning, mind conditioning for these arrests and human rights violations. It was like telling the public we deserved it. Like the others, our media outfit was red tagged just days before my arrest. The incarceration was another difficult experience. We were transferred to 4 different detention facilities in just 3 months. And due to COVID-19 protocols, we were placed in quarantine or isolation for 3 of the first 5 weeks in jail. I was able to get in touch with my lawyer only 2 days before my first hearing. I had also experienced COVID-19 symptoms in jail. But in jail, the only thing you could do about that is sleep through them like the common cold or flu. That is why it was a welcome surprise that the cases against me were dismissed swiftly. There were too many glaring inconsistencies in the police narrative that a court granted 4 search warrants and jailed 7 people on Human Rights Day 2020, and the 5 remain in jail. They continue to suffer incarceration for what had already been proven untrue or without credibility in my case. In the Philippines, at least 19 journalists have been killed under the current administration, and a culture of impunity persists in these crimes. No one has been brought to justice. On the one hand, it is journalists like myself, Maria Ressa, Frenchie Mae Cumpio, and others, and our media outfits, and not the perpetrators of the journalist killings, these political killings, and the Tokhang killings, who are made to suffer the weaponization of the law or the abuse of law enforcement. Frenchie Mae Cumpio, IAWRT Philippines member, is a community broadcaster and editor of digital publication Eastern Vista. She had been the first to experience what I experienced, and she has been detained since February 7, 2020. She was arrested in similar circumstances. In her case, though, lying down on her belly, unlike me, who was made to kneel and look and face the wall, and for the same charges as I was. Her trial is ongoing. Being able to join you here today, almost 2 months into my release from jail, teaches me that we remain free because we believe on being free and we insist on being free, as colleagues from the National Union of Journalists of the Philippines said in today's statement. I celebrate the brave women today with us: Maria, Najiba, Chanchan, Violet, Samina, Nupur, Nita, Kudsia, and many others, each of us facing our own struggles in press freedom and COVID-19 in our own countries. And we must continue to push back, to protect the truth, and to protect our ability to report it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, IC. December 10 was truly a dark day for journalists. Not only was Lady Ann or IC was arrested, also another IAWRT member in Afghanistan, Malalai Maiwand, and her driver were shot dead that very same day. And to share how journalists are faring now in Afghanistan, we have with us the chairperson of IAWRT Afghanistan from the Kilid Media and also co-founder of Afghan Independent Media Consortium and the Freedom of Expression Initiative, and IWMF's Courage in Journalism awardee back in 2013. We have with us Najiba Ayubi.
Hello, everyone. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for arranging this online protest event. Actually, in Afghanistan, we had a 20 years experience of free media. During this 20 years, we did a lot for our country. We established around more than 500 media outlets in Afghanistan, TV channels, radios, and print media. We achieved that to make media as an industry in this country. Now, 12,000 workers or journalists especially are working in this industry. But to come to the last 1 year or more than 1 year situation in Afghanistan, we had a very different situation than all of our colleagues, which mentioned until now in this event. From last year, when peace negotiations started, the situation get changed for Afghan journalists in Afghan media outlets. We had three very big issues. One was the COVID-19, which affected a lot our media. A number of our media, around 21 media outlets, was stopped their work. A number of journalists lost their jobs. A number of other women and men journalists left the country. And beside of COVID-19 issues, when the peace negotiation started, a lot of more pressure come on the journalists, especially on women journalists. These issues we had was threaten the media workers, the leaders of the media in country, the journalists themselves, and we during 1 year we lost 11 journalists, including 4 women. One of these women, as my colleague said, she was Malalai Maiwand, which lost his life. She was member of IAWRT as well, IAWRT Afghanistan. She lost his life, and 3 more in one of the eastern province of Nengarhar. And 5 others, 7 other men journalists also lost their life. Our problem is that nobody take this responsibility. When a journalist killed in Kabul or some other provinces, nobody take the responsibility. And we are in a very unclear situation. We don't know who is our killer, who is our enemy. Everyone put the blame. Everyone blame another side. Government blame the other side, and the other side blame government. And it is a very, very bad situation. I can tell you during 20 years, which we had a lot of achievement in this country, this is the most difficult time we have. Difficult time because a lot of limitation on the media, not regarding the law. Laws allow us to have our freedom. But we have a constitution in the on that it is very clearly mentioned that every Afghan have the right to have access to information. And the media law also, we have a lot of opportunity to use it as a tools for our freedom and also for reporting. But the big problem is nobody is care about the laws. Laws are not implementing. Sometime when we complain this to government, government say we don't put any limitation. But from the other side, the government responsible people, they didn't give us the information. When we have no access to information, how we forward, what to forward to the Afghan people? It is a big issue, and we have this limitation. I can tell you the problem in provinces of Afghanistan. Afghanistan have 34 provinces. In these 34 provinces, the problem is very, very serious than Kabul, because in provinces, a lot of powerful people, they are putting pressure on the journalists. And the journalists, under pressure, they have no protection. Then they are doing the self-censorship. It is a big problem right now, because we know a lot of things, but we can't forward it to the people because nobody talk about that problems, or we can't have access to these issues. During last year, or I can tell you during 1 year, a number of women journalists, under their family's pressure, they lost their job. They left their job and they went and sat at home, which is a disaster for a country that women nearly during this 20 years did a lot to be part of freedom of expression in this country. A number of journalists left the country, and a number of others which are continuing their work, they are doing their work under a lot of pressure. Recently, a number of media leaders or the head of the media getting direct threats, or to come to the digital pressure when a journalist posts something or write something or comment something in Facebook or other social media. In few minutes, a number of others are commenting of them and saying, don't talk, don't take side. Otherwise, you know what will we do. And this is our situation during 20 years. We lost 134 journalists, foreign and national journalists, and 22 we lost 11 journalists. And the situation we have now, it is a situation of fire, situation of pressure, unclear. Recently, the withdrawal of foreign troops make a lot of hopeless. The people are hopeless, and we don't know what will happen in near future, because the peace negotiation process is going very slow, and sometimes we don't have, not sometimes, always we don't have access to the information of peace negotiation. The negotiations are happening or doing by politicians, but these politicians are, I think a lot of them are not care about the freedom of expression, because a number of them think media is or media are their enemy. And now we have problems from different sides, from Taliban side and also from government side, and we are in unclear situation. I don't know tomorrow what will happen on me or my colleagues or my media outlets. And like this, everyone in this country is living in a very unclear situation. And beside of this, COVID-19 is increased during 1 or 2 months. Now it is another wave of COVID-19, And a number of people are getting this COVID-19, and the access to the health services is very less, and vaccination is very limited to the few people, not to all of Afghan people. And this is our situation, and I don't know tomorrow what will happen when Taliban join government or they take the power. We are not sure if we are not going back to 20 years back. Now, all of our achievement, all of what we did during this 20 years, all these things are in one basket, and this basket is danger. And we really need right now. We really need to some unity with other colleagues around the world, and also among ourselves. Women in Afghanistan are also very, very concerned about the situation which is coming, because there is a lot of time that mentioned by Taliban. We want a pure Islamic government, and they are not defending that. They are not giving a clearance what they want to have this government. And where is the rule? Where is the picture of the women of Afghanistan? And where is the picture of freedom of expression in this country? And we are very concerned, because the last 1 year experience of Afghan journalists and media outlets shows that we will be once again in very, very unclear, very dangerous, and very, very bad situation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Najiba, and for sharing the plight of journalists in Afghanistan. In the past months, we have seen the people of Myanmar struggling for freedom and genuine democracy to finally reign. And independent media practitioners and journalists have been on the ground ever since, documenting abuses and how the people are fighting and holding the powerful to account. To share with us the situation on the ground and how journalists are fighting back amid all these attacks and threats, we have with us we have with us the senior broadcast, he is a senior broadcast journalist and a senior news presenter and in charge of Democratic Voice of Burma CJ News Network. We have with us Chan Tiriso.
I would like to say thank you for letting me share the current situation of press freedom in Burma. I'm afraid, it is not good situation in Burma. Just only 1 hour after the military coup on 1st February, they shut down our television channel and then they cut off internet around the Burma. But we are continue to report what's happening on the ground, and then the military brutalities against on the civilian, and over our social media page, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, and satellite. Because of that, the military council permanently revoked our media license and banned us publishing any news, any programs, and any programs on any platform. So we have begun an illegal organization in the country. 3 of our DVB journalists arrested and stay detained in prison. They have not able to meet with their family. So one of them was arrested at his home in the middle of night, very late night, and then about 20 military troops surrounded his apartment and opened fire around his house. They violently dragged him out of his home and taken him to the military interrogation center. His only crime was interviewing a mother whose son killed by the military in the demonstration. So in Burma, the whole country, over 60 journalists have been arrested since after the coup, and about 40 of them still being detained. And then including our organization, DBB Media Organization, 5 media organization banned from doing our job. Facebook is banned and the internet is frequently cut off, and then over 700 people have been killed by the military troops, and then over 3,000 demonstrators has been detained. The military troops are terrorizing the whole country. Anyone who reports those stories will end in the prison. So in Burma, press freedom is under the attack. So I would like to request international media organization to call for the immediate release of all detained our journalists, and then show their solidarity with people in Burma on this Press Freedom Day. Thank you.
Isip tayong lumilikha ng yaman ng daigdig. Muling manggagawa, lagutin ang tanikala, kamting pandaigdigang paglaya. Samantalahan, kay tagal ng binubusabos ng gahaman, karapatan ay niyuyurakan, hanap buhay ay walang katiyakan.
Mababang sahod ay nakapako, subsub sa trabaho, wala pa rin benepisyo. Ilang taon ng kontraktual, hindi pa rin nagiging regular.
Dapat baguhin ang kalagayan, wakas ang sistema, inasasanlakan, manawagan ay palakasin. Iningiti ay lagutin, muling manggagawa, magkapit-bisig, tayong lumilikha ng yaman ng daigdig. Muling manggagawa, lagutin ang tanikala, kamting pandaigdigang paglaya. Hagupit sa araw-araw, kaya't magbalikwas at sumigaw.
Dapat baguhin ang kalagayan, wakas ang sistema, inasasadlakan, panawagan ay palakasin, hiningiti ay nabutin. Muling manggagawa, magkapit-bisig, tayong lumilikha ng yaman ng daigdig. Muling manggagawa, lagutin ang talikala, kamting pandaigdig ang paglaya. Tayo'y kumilos at lumaban, pabuhin ang kasaysayan, ay makakamtan, sama-samang paglaban. Uring manggagawa, magkapit-bisig, tayo lumilikha ng yaman ng daigdig. Uring manggagawa, lagutin ang panikala, kamting pandaigdig ang paglaya. Uring manggagawa, magkapit-bisig, tayo lumilikha ng yaman ng daigdig. Uring manggagawa, lagutin ang panikala, kamting pandaigdig ang paglaya. Kamting pandaigdig ang paglaya.
Thank you so much, concerned artists of the Philippines, for that beautiful song titled Uring Manggagawa. 2 days ago, we also commemorated the International Labor Day and the workers' plight and continuing struggle for it. For our workers' welfare is not something we merely report as journalists. It is also a personal issue for many of our colleagues subjected to poor working conditions. And this is also a fight that we must continue to bring to fore as we call for a genuinely free press. Maria Ressa of Rappler was with us earlier via Zoom. She said she will try to log in again for her presentation, but she also sent a word that she wants to send all of us all the energy and love, because we must get through this time, and strengthening communities like this is a key step. Thank you so much, Maria, and we hope that you can make it back to our program today. So for our next part of the program, we have with us the advisor for communication and information of UNESCO Jakarta, Ming Kukling.
Good evening, everyone. This is Ming from UNESCO office, where I'm the advisor for communication and information. Thank you to IAWRT for the invitation to share a few humble words, which pales in comparison to the work of the courageous women journalists here today, which I nevertheless hope would be useful to some. But first of all, of course, my warmest congratulations to Maria Ressa for being named the 2021 laureate for UNESCO GMO Kana World Press Freedom Prize. I'm also very glad to see Lady Ann and that she's well and is able to join us today. So I would like to touch a little bit about World Press Freedom Day and what we do at UNESCO on safety of journalists. The theme for World Press Freedom Day this year is information as a public good. So it serves as a call to reaffirm the importance of cherishing information as a public good and exploring what can be done in the production, distribution, and reception of content. Very specifically, this year, we are looking at three issues, three perspectives: the viability of media and news organization in this day and age, especially with COVID as one of the factors, the transparency of online platforms and how it impacts journalism, the link between media and information literacy, and how it can counter disinformation and hate speech. I think we all agree that these are very relevant issues to all of us. So these themes ties very strongly to what UNESCO has been doing for the past few decades in ensuring the long-term health of journalism and safety of media workers everywhere. And this includes through the UN Plan of Action on the Safety of Journalists and the issue of impunity that UNESCO leads. As noted by our other speakers, the current pandemic has really increased pressure on journalism and journalists. The pandemic has exacerbated existing challenges, including the reality where a lot of media outlets are closing. And elsewhere, I noted that just as a sort of a back of an envelope calculation, at least 1,000 journalists have lost their jobs in the past 12 months alone in Southeast Asia, and of course, more in other regions. And false information and rumors have flourished, and with some fatal consequences in some situation. And this pandemic has really underlined the ever-urgent need for us to have reliable, verifiable information. And journalists is at the front line of providing that reliable and verifiable information. And we hope that all governments around the world can recognize that. And as the speaker from India and Pakistan have noted, really to ensure that they have the frontliner status to receive vaccine. So as Ms. Violet Gonda also noted, and which has been reported by the Press Emblem campaign, more than 1,000 journalists have already lost their lives due to COVID-19 in the past year. So our thoughts are with all these journalists who continue to serve at the front line, those who survive and are still working, and also to all the other journalists that are working to cover the pandemic. And this includes journalists in India, and the situation there is very dire. At the same time, we know that women journalists are also facing unprecedented online harassment and threats. So this has been reflected in the new UNESCO and International Center for Journalists report called the Chilling, which is based on a global survey of over 900 journalists from 125 countries. It includes two big data case studies from two journalists based on 2.5 million posts on Facebook and Twitter. And these two journalists, one of them, of course, Maria Ressa from the Philippines. And based on this study, 73% of respondents had experienced online violence, and 25% received physical violence threats. And these are just two of the outcomes of this survey, and I urge everyone to have a look at it. And it does find some very disturbing but common characteristics of these kind of threats, that online violence are often organized, coordinated, and even sponsored, and sometimes by the state. And misogyny is one of the key features of all these attacks. And the perpetrators of online violence against women often target their family, their children, the sources of the work that use journalistic source, their colleagues, and even bystanders who help say something about it. The threats are intimate and very personal and often highly sexualized. It can be extreme, it can be intense, and it can be prolific. And because the attack is constant and takes place over a long period, it can be like a slow burn that cumulatively the impact can be devastating. So those, again, are some of the common characteristics found by the study I mentioned just now. So I hope I was able to share some useful information with my intervention just now. And as we mark this World Press Freedom Day today, we salute the journalists everywhere for their continuing effort in providing public interest journalism. We owe them, we owe you, journalists in the members of the audience today, a debt of gratitude. And we call on everyone to really renew our commitment to ensure that journalists are safe to carry out their work and that we continue to ensure information remain as a public good. With that, I thank you very much, and back to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ming, and for being a staunch partner of journalists in many parts of the world. Can one be sent to prison over a retweet? Our next speaker has a story to share. She is the CEO of Rappler. She is named as Time Magazine's 2018 Person of the Year and 100 most influential people of 2019 and one of Time's most influential women of the century. She is a recipient of various awards, and of course, among the most recent, congratulations, is the UN Guillermo Cano Press Freedom Prize Award. Let us all welcome Maria Ressa.
I think all that means is that I'm really old, right? I've been around a while. First, kudos to the courage and the, oh, wow. I don't even know how to describe Icy and the way she handled what has happened to her. I would not ever want you to be resigned. And in some ways, I felt that was, you were ready for the worst. I am not doing anything different from what I've done 35 years ago, except the context has changed. And the UNESCO Award, Ming, it is good to see you again. The Guillermo Cano World Press Freedom Prize, I'll tell you what happened when they called me. I was a member of the jury from 2015 to 2018. And then I was president of the jury in 2018. And during those years, I kept saying, and Ming was one of the people I would talk to, I would say, please, let's give the award to somebody who is both alive and free. And so this year, when I got the call, the first thing I asked Guillermo was, is this foreshadowing? It's never been as tough to be a journalist, to carry out the mission of journalism, to hold power to account. It has never been as tough, as dangerous, as risky as it is today. You heard Icy, at least in my case, I think the difference between the two of us is I'm much older and I worked outside. I worked for CNN for 20 years. And so when I saw the tides turn, and this was in 2016, when we saw technology turn against us, when journalists lost our gatekeeping powers and it went to tech, right? When we were the gatekeepers, we were responsible for facts. Tech took it, and I'd say that was probably around 2014. When they took it, they abdicated responsibility. All of the studies have shown that on social media, lies laced with anger and hate spread faster and further than really boring facts. Countries here, India, this is one of the biggest problems you face. We called it. There's the RSF came out with a forum on information and democracy, where we formed an infodemics working group to try to find solutions for this. The reason why this is important is that this is like putting poison in the well. This is part of the reason cheap armies on social media are rolling back democracies around the world. In 2017, it was about 27 countries. In 2021, January this year, Oxford University's Computational Propaganda Research Project put it at 81. So that's the first, right? That's the biggest change. We're no longer the gatekeepers. The second thing is, is connected to that. Ming mentioned the chilling. You know, they analyzed, this is Julie Passetti was the lead author in this, but we used social network analysis and natural language processing to analyze more than almost 500,000 social media posts that were attacking me. And of that, about 60% were tearing down my credibility. Because in 2016, when meta-narrative journalist equals criminal was seeded against me, I laughed because I thought, oh my gosh, I've been around a long time. My track record is there. But in social media, you have no track record. There is no context. You know, it is what it is. And the algorithms actually, by design, serve to divide and radicalize. And that's the fundamental problem. I always say it's like an atom bomb went off in our information ecosystem. When our governments use a scorched earth policy to insidiously manipulate the people in the democracy, we have to hold government to account. That was why I was targeted in 2016 with an average of 90 hate messages per hour. This follows. So coming up, bottom up, 2016, in 2017, President Duterte attacked us in his State of the Nation address. We're privileged. And then in a week later, I got my first subpoena. In 2018, the government filed 11 cases and investigations against us. In 2019, I was arrested twice in a 5-week period. It was like my Valentine's Day gift. They detained me overnight and just to kind of help me feel their power. Gosh, if you have to do stupid things like that to make people feel your power, then, you know, what power do you really have? Then I posted bail 8 times in 2019. The criminal cases moved on. It was almost a war of attrition. I think they had meant to bankrupt us, but our community came in and helped. And this is why this is wonderful to listen to women all around Asia, because that's the community we are going to have to pull together to get through this. Let's call it the valley of death, right? So in 2020, I was convicted. This is funny. I was convicted of cyber libel, a former colleague and I, for a story that was published 8 years earlier at a time when the law we supposedly violated didn't even exist. For a story I didn't write, edit, or supervise. But for that, I could go to jail for 6 years. That's okay. Amal Clooney, I'm very privileged to have Amal Clooney as a lawyer. And she just told me, you know, you could go to jail for 100 years. It's 103 years. But I was like, okay, well, let's see. Whether I go to jail or not will depend on how well I do my job now. And I guess that's the last part, because we cannot leave ourselves feeling down. We cannot get dragged down by the world we live in right now. Because part of the reason we became journalists is because we want justice and we want a better world, right? So what are we going to do? What can we do? For me, Rappler has 3 pillars, and these are the ones that we're looking for solutions in: technology, journalism, and community. Those are the 3 pillars. And I bet these are the same pillars you have, right? For technology, guardrails. Since last year, I've been working hard on this with global groups, trying to look for systemic solutions, not the whack-a-mole solutions that social media platforms will put forward, not content moderation, but looking at the algorithms, systemic. The second is independent journalism. How do we survive financially at the time of coronavirus? So I sit as a strategic advisor to the International Fund for Public Interest Media. That group is trying to raise $1 billion every year to try to help groups, especially small and medium-sized news organizations, independent news organizations. That group will try to help us survive. And then finally, community, right? That's really what saves us, isn't it? I mean, for all of the bad things that have happened, and there have been so many, I guess I still choose, right? I haven't lost faith. I think that the Universal Declaration of Human Rights still holds. It's hard to actually think about how we get back to it in some of these instances. Like IC's case, there's so many more of that. There have been journalists. I'll tell you one thing from our data in the Philippines: women are attacked at least 10 times more than men online. At least 10 times more than men. And I'm going to quote a Turkish journalist, Ece Temelkuran, when she says that sexism and misogyny goes hand in hand with fascism, or the rise of fascism. And that's what we're seeing globally. I'm going to leave it at that and just say I thank you for inviting me, and gosh, more power to you.
Thank you so much, Maria, and you continue to inspire us. I think someone like you will never age. Don't worry. So on a more serious note, to close the first part of the program, we have with us from JMIC, Oslo Met University, Una Solberg. I think your microphone is still on mute. Yes.
Sorry, can you hear me now? Hello,
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you so much, dear all of you, for sharing your experiences and your thoughts. It's been great listening to you and to share this day with you, the World Press Freedom Day. We called it Defending Press Freedom and Freedom of Expression and online protest action. And we have listened to very strong testimonies from colleagues from the Philippines right now, from Afghanistan, and from other parts of Asia and the world, about being a woman journalist under the pandemic, more specifically about how to keep distance while doing the job to be close and get the right information, often under pressure, sometimes also as victims of harassment and violence, as we have heard, because of the job that we do. We have organized this event together with our old partners, UNESCO in Jakarta, with Ming, which is great, and with International Association of Women in Radio and Television. Thanks to all of you for working so hard to get this through. Our center has always been working on gender and media through workshops and conferences and research and publication. You can find some information about this on our webpage. Today, the World Press Freedom Day, 3rd May, is celebrated all over the world. This year, as we have heard, the title is Information as a Public Good, 30 years after the Windhoek Declaration. As Violet told us, this declaration for the development of a free, independent, and pluralistic press was produced by African journalists in Namibia in 1991. UNESCO's main celebration, the Global Conference, is this year in Southern Africa in Namibia, and of course online, like most of us have to be these days. We also had an event in Uganda at Makerere. It's still ongoing. It started this morning. Here today, we are so proud of having the winner of the Guillermo Cano World Press Freedom Prize, Maria Reza, together with us here today. This prize is in honor of an assassinated Colombian journalist, and Maria is carrying this tradition with her fight for press freedom in the Philippines and in the world for all of us. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining us.
Thank you so much, Una. Again, this online protest action was organized by the International Association of Women in Radio and Television in partnership with the Journalism and Media International Center of Oslo Met University and in collaboration with UNESCO Jakarta. Thank you also for those who participated in this protest action. We have participants from the Philippines, Nicaragua, Nepal, US, Tanzania, Sweden, India, UAE, Afghanistan, Germany, Norway, Pakistan, Cameroon, Denmark, Bangladesh, and Kenya. And now we will proceed with the second part of the program. This is going to be a relatively shorter one compared to the first one. And to start this protest action, we have a video prepared by the National Union of Journalists of the Philippines.
Ako si Frenchie Mae Cumpio, tagapagbalita, hindi terorista.
Ako si Frenchie Mae Cumpio, mamamahayag, hindi terorista.
Ako si Frenchie Mae Cumpio, tagapagbalita, hindi terorista.
You saw the video presentation from the National Union of Journalists of the Philippines. This is a video campaign calling for the release or for the freedom of our detained colleague from Alternative Press, Frenchie Mae Cumpio. She was arrested back in February 2020 and she remains behind bars up until today. And to lead today's protest action, we have with us the chapter head of IAWRT Philippines, Ms. Lindia Katindig Garcia.
Good evening, everyone. Magandang gabi po sa ating lahat. And I'm so glad I'm here. So at this point, may I request everyone to please turn on your videos, if possible. All right, so yes, and should you have your placards with you, may I invite you to please ready them. All right. Okay, so that's wonderful. And also, I would like to find out if some of our colleagues here have entered our Zoom here. I hope, yeah, some of them will be coming in, or most of them. All right. So this is what we're going to do. I shall be beginning the chant, all right, the words that we will utter, and then you will follow me. Do you hear me loud and clear?
Yes.
Do you see me loud, clearly?
Yes.
Yeah, all right, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. All right, so can we now have our online global action? This event will indeed need this part of the program to verbalize our statement with regard our commemoration of the World Press Freedom Day in different parts of the globe, and coming from the different members of International Association of Women in Radio and Television, and of course, our brothers, our sisters as well, definitely, from the different parts of the world. So I will begin, and then you follow me. Defend, defend, defend press freedom.
Defend.
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 Defend press
Defend
freedom.
press freedom.
Free Frenchie Mae Cumpio now.
Free Frenchie Mae Cumpio now.
Stop red tagging.
Stop red tagging.
End attacks on journalists.
And attacks on journalists.
All right. So may I again invite everybody. We'll do it again. I hope now with gusto and with more power. All right?
Okay.
1, 2, 3. Defend,
Defend.
defend,
Defend.
defend
freedom.
Defend press freedom.
Free Frenchie Mae Cumpio now.
Free Frenchie Mae Cumpio now.
Stop red tagging.
Stop red tagging. Stop red tagging.
And attacks on journalists.
And attacks on journalists.
So thank you very much for your participation. So I was also tasked to request everyone to please turn on their videos. Please show I hope you would show your faces for our photo op and for our documentation.
Okay.
Okay. So I think someone is in charge of our photo op. Please give us the cue here. Show us your placards as well.
Okay,
If you
Sanaf
have.
will take the photos.
All right, Sanaf, thank you. Sanaf, are you done? Give us a cue.
Tanap.
Sanaf, are you there? Jola?
Yes, we are done. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. And now, Janice, back to you.
Thank you, Ma'am Linz. And to close our the second part of the last part actually of the program, again would like to say thank you for everyone. Thank you to everyone who participated in today's protest action, to everyone who shared their testimonials, and for sharing how we continue to be part of this community who's struggling for a truly free press. Again, thank you so much. To close tonight's program, we have another music video from the concerned artists of the Philippines.
King on the rotting throne, you plunder a land, eat the fruits you haven't sown, you leave deceptions, burn our schools and our homes. Those who stood up and defended their rights, opposed oppression and exploitation, clench your fist with all their might, were tagged as murderers and criminals, put behind bars, disappeared, killed in broad daylight. But they can't imprison freedom and keep it out.
And we're no longer on Facebook, I think. Again, thank you so much. You can unmute yourself. We're no longer on Facebook. Yes. Thank you again so much for being here. Yes.
Thank you so much, everyone. It was so nice to see you all.
Thank you, Malika. Malika's here. And Christine.
Bye.
Kristen.
Hi,
Kristen.
Thank you, everyone.
Natis is here.
Yeah.
Hello, Dr. Ming.
Dr. Ming, great to see you.
Good to see you as well. Thank
We
you for
miss you.
inviting. Thank you for organizing. Have a good,
Bye-bye to the
rest
from
of the-
Nicaragua.
Bye.
Bye-bye from Nicaragua.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Good to see you.
Bye. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Hi, IC. I miss you.
Take care and stay
I miss
safe.
you too. Where's Edrito?
Violet, I love your hair. I love your hair, Violet.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I love your hair, Violet.
Between Violet and
Janice,
Jola's
ako di mo
earrings.
miss.
Violet
Sino
won.
yun?
Jola's hoop earrings are the best.
No, Violet are the best.
Ano, Fe? IC.
Thank you po.
Yeah.
Ingat po kayo.
Kira.
Care, everyone.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. It was nice program. Good job. Good job. Good job.
Hi,
IC
Christine.
and the Philippines chapter.
Kristen is here. Hi,
Yeah, Christine is here. Yeah, one of our
Christine,
veterans. Yeah.
Yeah, the veteran journalist.
Yeah, Christine. Yeah.
Thank you. Congratulations, Janice, for moderating.
Sana yung kilikili ko.
You know, it's so hot in the Philippines. Yeah.
Yeah, bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Stay safe.
Bye.
Bye, Bandira.
Bye. Bye, Janice. Janice, it was really nice moderation.